So just to quickly talk through the agenda before we move on to the slides, just a tiny little introduction. What we're wanting to do is talk the very least and listen the most. So just a slight update from us. The panel members, most of our panel members sadly aren't able to make today, hence why they really want to watch the recording. Most of them are in caring duties or on other commitments. So it's Sarah and I today and a recording, and then we'll move on to the background of the Carers Legacy Fund, a little bit of an update from Sarah, and then most importantly, listening to those of you who've offered very kindly to share how your projects are going and your learning so far, and then any questions at the end. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you all. Moving on to the next slide. So a little bit of an update with COVID year 2020. So as you all know, we're part of the national network, 47 community foundations across the network. We've delivered over £1 billion of grants, and the endowment's now grown to 700 million. As the membership organisation, we're assessed every 3 years, and we've just completed a QA5, which is essentially similar to an Ofsted. So I've just pressed the button a couple of weeks ago, a huge amount of work, a full organisational audit. So we're thrilled to have come out the other end. So we may have been slightly quiet for a little while, so doing lots of behind the scenes work, but so pleased that we can get on with the more exciting work like today. So 2020, as a network, we delivered 68 million in COVID grants, and the average size is around 4,000, so still very much about grassroots and small organisational funding, and we're the 4th largest funder now in the UK. So really powerful network across the whole of the UK, but very much focused on local place-based funding. So in 2020, GCF increased our grant making fourfold. So we supported from an average of around 300,000 in previous years to 1.2 million in grants last year. So essentially what we're really excited about in terms of shifting a little bit more from emergency grants and the sort of COVID grant making is some of the work that we're hearing, the projects that have been able to start again and the services resuming. And this is the bit that's going to be really brilliant for us to understand the change, maybe some of the changes you've gone through, how you've adapted to them, what the learnings are. So it'll be just so interesting to hear about that today. So handing over to the next slide. And passing back over to Sarah, who will run the rest of the day.
Yeah, so just a little bit about the Carers Gloucestershire Legacy Fund. I think a lot of you here have been to our other Let's Talk sessions, so I won't hang around too much with this. It's a fund that's been established to bring lasting benefit to adult carers across Gloucestershire. It's a legacy from the Carers Gloucestershire charity that supported carers so well for so many years. When that charity closed down, there were funds remaining, and they were really keen to see those used to be able to provide a legacy really for carers, and projects that will be kind of experimental or fill some of the gaps that are there in the county from other statutory provision that's there. So we've tried to identify where there are additional things that we can add to that provision that's there already with the projects that we're supporting. It's assisted quite a lot of different VCSE organisations already, and the prime goal is to support adult carers. So there are 5 main areas of support for the Carers Gloucestershire Legacy Fund. They are to support transition points. So that's either following the end of life or following the end of caring responsibilities, or perhaps when a young carer moves to becoming an adult carer. The other thing is improving emotional well-being of the carer, which we've seen a lot of applications that are focused on that. Improving carer confidence with dealing with particular conditions that are affecting the people they're caring for. Supporting carers to use assistive technologies, so all sorts of different technologies that might be useful in supporting carers, and then also supporting the introduction of systems for evaluation and understanding more the impact of a particular carer service. And quite a lot of the applications we've received have sort of combined quite a few of these different elements in the project. Within that area, we're quite keen to see applications from either for the trial of new services or perhaps the extension of something that's already been piloted successfully, that would like to move into more of mainstream provision, and also the continuation of existing successful services. If it's working really well, then we don't really see why you should have to change it to fit in with a funding programme. So grants range up to £10,000 a year for up to 3 years. The panel are quite keen to receive innovative applications, so things that are perhaps trying a different way of working or something that's a bit more creative as a way of supporting carers. So far with the Carers Fund, we've supported 27 organisations with a total of more than £318,000 worth of grants. Now that's across a period of 3 years, as I said, so some of these are multi-year grants where we've allocated the funds but not actually given the money out just yet. So there are a few things that we don't support. These are either in relation to a specific grant programme or also just our overall policies. So individuals we don't support, so that's individuals applying to us for funding rather than projects that support individuals. The provision of respite care, this was felt from the research that the Carers Gloucestershire team did before we took on the fund, that there was already quite a lot of provision of respite care. Having said that, if that respite care is really important to the project that's supporting an adult carer, so if it's something for their well-being and it's central to that project, that it can't go ahead if there isn't any respite provided for the carer to be able to attend a project, then we would support things where respite is sort of an element of that project. We also are really keen to avoid duplicating statutory provision that's already out there. We don't support buildings or the cost of purchasing a vehicle through this particular fund. General appeals for funding, so if there's no particular project to support and it's just to add to reserves, for example, we wouldn't support that. Political groups we don't generally support, or religious groups where it's promoting a particular religious belief, so any projects that we support have to be accessible for everybody. And then the final thing is projects that take place before an application's processed. Oh, and activities taking place outside Gloucestershire as well, so it's completely Gloucestershire based. So that's our bit now. I'd like now to be, I'm just going to stop screen sharing. And I would like now to invite some of our groups to speak for us. So if I could start list, I had a list prepared. Lost it. Oh, I'm going to find it in a minute. I'm going to start by asking Pam if you would mind speaking. Would that be okay?
Pam, you're just on mute. You'll need to just come off mute. That's great.
Sorry, I always forget that. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to share with everybody else here the exciting things we feel we're doing with the grant that we've got from the Carers Legacy, because for us it is very exciting. So what we are doing, we were successful in getting a grant, hopefully for 3 years, but for the first year we're in now, we've just run our first project. And we are a charity that supports disabled children and young people across the Forest and their parents and carers. So our idea came actually from the consultation that it was the legacy grant, but Gloucestershire Community Fund did, where you did that big consultation with a load of carers, didn't you, Sarah? And one of the things that came back that they were saying was that they wanted more opportunities to do activities alongside other carers, to have the chance to spend time with other carers, but to do something at the same time, not just to become and talked at. Now, that's something we used to do many years ago, and the consultation with our families had led to us not doing so much of that. But as a result of seeing that in that consultation, we consulted with our parents and said, would you like this opportunity? And they all said yes, but the stumbling block for them was because they all have a disabled child, and trying to find someone to look after that child while they do something for themselves that helps their health and well-being is quite difficult. So we applied for funding to run workshops which would offer skills and opportunities for parents to learn something new or do something that they wanted to do a little bit more of, but also meet other parents, whilst we provided the support for the children, because the majority of the children involved are very vulnerable and have high support needs. So we have to have staff who are experienced and can meet all their individual needs. We had our first workshop last Sunday. It was a bread making session, and the feedback has been phenomenal. The parents that got there really enjoyed it. We did have lower attendance than we had hoped for. We didn't have a massive attendance to start with, and I think that's simply because of COVID. There's a lot of parents that said, we hope to come next time, but we're not quite ready to start coming out and about yet. A lot of their children are very vulnerable. One parent had a last-minute family medical crisis with one of the family members. Another was suffering with heat stroke, and another had a child that wasn't able to cope with the heat. So they were all very unavoidable reasons for the people that didn't make it on the day. But those that did reported back they loved the session, they liked where we were and what we did, but that they really, the most important thing for them was knowing that their children were safe and that the care was linked with the activity. That so many of them have said they'd tried to book onto things before, then they'd been let down by childcare and they almost don't bother anymore. But knowing that we were doing the two together, so they couldn't really be let down, gave them a lot of confidence and apparently really helped them decide to book on and to come and relax and have a nice time. They also fed back that they really welcomed the opportunity to talk to other parents, and two of them said actually quite specifically that had helped them to look at ways of dealing with a particular situation that they had at the time, strategies for helping them. So I think that's what we're about. We're about health and well-being. We're about bringing people together to do things that make them feel better, but also to support them in finding ways to get over the barriers, the challenges that they have in life. So that was really good. Several of them met up with parents they hadn't seen for 18 months over COVID, and that was wonderful. But they also said how nice it was to meet parents they'd not met before. And one thing that came out of it that we didn't anticipate, and we're now, I think we can still do it within our remit, I'm sure we can. We didn't open it up to dads and moms, both parents. We didn't say it could only be moms, but I have to say some of the things we were doing were the sort of things that might encourage the moms to come more. It was the things that they fed back to us that they wanted: cooking, bread making, flower arrangements. But we had a dad come along, and the feedback from that family was how wonderful it was to be able to go somewhere as a couple and do something that made them feel good and that was totally not to do with caring, but at the same time knowing their child was with young people that they knew, with carers that they knew, and that they could relax. They said so often, like Dad said, so often one or other of us has to stay behind, and sometimes they're things we both want to do. So we're actually planning to kind of relook at what we're going to be doing and making it more of an open invitation. So if both parents want to come, they can. We didn't make it so they couldn't, but we didn't encourage them, didn't think of it. We just did what we always do. This is this, do you want to come? So thank you to Legacy Fund, because you made us think of that in a different way. And it maybe we need to do a bit more at the moment anyway, about supporting dads and moms and allowing them to do things together. So we might be coming back to you, Sarah, to make sure that's within our remit. So I think that's as much as I can tell you about what we've done. We've only done one so far. We've got another 3 lined up. But if any of you have got any questions, I'm happy, but I'm also aware we're short of time, so I'll shut up.
Oh, thank you so much, Pam. And that's I'm more than happy for you to change the grant slightly to include couples, because that sounds brilliant. And I think that's part of what this is all about, is learning as you go along and making adaptations. And I think, yeah, it sounds brilliant. I'm always happy to hear of people being able to get a little bit of time to do something that they enjoy doing, especially in that situation, I think. I think Corinne's got a quick question.
Yeah, just a quick one. Pam, how often are you planning to do your sessions?
Every 3 months for a year at the moment. I think that's what we put in the funding. But if they get to be really successful and people are saying we want them more often, we will look at some other funding from somewhere else to see if we can make them more frequent.
Were they half a day or a whole day? Did you say? Sorry.
I didn't say. It was 6 hours.
Okay, so a full day more or less. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
5 hours. Sorry, my maths is out. 10 till 10, then 12, 10 till 3. Yeah, parents bought a packed lunch. The children bought their packed lunch. They all went off and played, and the kids had great fun as well. There was good feedback from the children.
Brilliant. I think we can probably have a bit more time for chat at the end, I'm hoping.
Right.
But if we could move now to Blanche, would you be happy to talk about your project? Thank you, Pam.
My pleasure. Let's mute myself.
Blanche, you're going to need to come off mute. It's going to be one of those things, if we could remember just to unmute ourselves.
Okay.
You think after 18 months we remember, but I keep doing it myself. So it's just one of those things.
Okay, thanks. Yes. Right. Yes, we were very lucky. And I think that is the first time we've had such a big grant, really. What we had the prior was sort of like a 500 or 1,000. But we were very glad to have this funding, which we wanted our project to be a continuation of our emotional well-being program that we've had for years, which was very, very successful, because counseling and therapy was not one of the things that our BME community tends to look at. But we started it some years ago and it has been very successful, but our funding had ceased. And we were very, very glad to have this funding to restart, really, that project. And we applied for the funding for 2 years for the counseling. And I must say that this COVID has really hit our community because of a lot of the underlying problems that they've had. And even though we say we would want 10 persons for counseling for the 2 years, we already done 13 people this year who are families of carers who have been going through a lot of problems, not just with COVID, but other underlying problems with family deaths and accidents and different things. So we already have 77 hours that is being given for counseling, and it is continuing. We also have, because of the COVID also, we had the digital platform where we do try to help those people who haven't used a mobile apart from a call. We're able to do some digital programs. So we had 24 people who did digital program on Zoom and on WhatsApp meeting. And this really has helped a lot of people whose families are in London, who were in the lockdown and couldn't come along. Many of those older ones have used the WhatsApp, but they haven't got the competency to do sort of like meetings like we are doing today. and because they are older people as well. But we are hoping in the future that we are going to have a day when we can do some competent tests with them and to see how they get along. We also had planned to have a well-being day, which we've canceled so many times. But fortunately, the facilities that were used, they did not charge us for the cancellation. But our next meeting will be on the 4th of August, when we are having our well-being day, and this is being planned already, and that will be from 10 till 4 o'clock. We also have other activities, what we call it, exercise sessions. So we have that weekly now. We did have some funding from Active Gloucester, which we have had to add in, so as a continuation. So each week we have at least 25 people come. They are not all carers, but they are older BME community. So we had 25 people each session for the exercise. And because the place outside, we have most of the sessions outside. It's only since the sun started, really, we have to go inside because the way the building is, it's too hot to stay outside for the exercise. So we have started inside because it's a massive building that we use. So our funding has been really helped our community. There has been a lot of anxiety and bereavement. And the reason for the counseling really culturally is because there are a lot of things that our people express that would not be expressed in the natural counseling session with a Caucasian. So it is doing very well. We still have a small amount of funding left, but we have plans for that for the future.
I'm doing it now, trying to speak with, with my microphone on mute, but that was really great to hear, Blanche. I don't think you said at the start that you're from the Ebony Carers group.
Oh, sorry, yes.
You are from?
We are from the Ebony Community Carers, which is a BME carers group where we support our carers. We support them by even giving them 2-hour respite care weekly, which is some funding that we do have from the adult carers grant, adult carers, and they monitor us every quarter for that. But so we don't have any other funding. All our people are volunteers. We don't have any paid workers.
Oh, it's brilliant again just to hear how positive it's been and what a difference it's actually made to having that grant. So yeah, great to hear. Does anybody have any questions for Blanche? No, I don't. It doesn't look like we've got any questions.
Somebody.
Oh yes. Oh, Corinne.
Okay.
Sorry, another question. Where are you based, Blanche? Do you cover the whole county, or is it just Gloucester? Where are you?
No, we are just Gloucester, but if there's any, we do advertise ourselves in Stroud, where we know there's a decent amount of BME community there. Well, the BME is not just BME, it is mainly Caribbean, really, I should say, and our mixed families, mixed race families. Yes, so yes, we do Gloucestershire, but obviously we are not aware of those people sometimes out of Gloucester unless somebody refer them, so they can be referred to us in Gloucester. Yes.
Lovely. So now, thank you for that, Blanche. We can move to Ness from Charlie's.
Hi.
Hello.
I was just making sure I did unmute before I started. Can everyone hear all right? So I'm Ness and I am the youth worker at Charlie's, and Charlie's is Charlie's Cancer Support Centre in Gloucester. So we have our main centre in Gloucester, and then we've got a satellite session that currently happens in the Forest, and then we're looking at doing other satellite sessions across the county. So we support anybody affected by cancer. So that could be that they're currently going through a cancer diagnosis or post-cancer, and anybody that's around them. So mainly I work with the children and young people, and that could be with a cancer diagnosis themselves or affected by a parent grandparent, sibling, auntie, uncle that's had a cancer diagnosis. And then our centres open Tuesday, Wednesdays and Thursdays 10 till 2. And that's for people to come and access complementary therapies. And that includes sort of like Reiki, lymphatic draining, reflexology, massage, and also meet with other peers. So it's just that supportive environment. We were really lucky to obviously be awarded the grant from yourselves. And that's meant that we've been able to develop our Saturday once a month sessions, which is for the full family to come together that are all affected by cancer, which obviously we didn't run during COVID, but since reopening the sessions in April this year, we've had a mass take up, and that's been obviously where the whole families have been isolated together. So obviously you've had the patient and the carer and then all the family community around. So also that's meant that a lot of the children have had to isolate because of low immunity within the family members, but also they've taken on maybe more of a caring, responsible role. So, and also it's progressed into those sessions are also obviously covering bereavement. We've had a lot of families that haven't been able to access support for the last 18 months because of isolation and shielding. So they've come along to the groups and they've lost the family member that had cancer. So actually they're able to come together in those groups and access those sessions. So the funding's meant that we have myself as a youth worker, we have an art therapist, we have a cancer nurse specialist that's available, and a therapist also available in those sessions. So we can actually they need to be able to offer other one-on-one sessions that are required for further support. And we've been able to obviously then support some of the families a bit further with the therapist additional hours through the month, and to just specifically work with the cancer carers in that sense, which has been great. So we're able to kind of offer that full wraparound, because a lot of the time when the person has a cancer diagnosis, the other family members just sort of carry on and do all the things that they need to do, and actually don't look after their own well-being. And actually it's about having them have that well-being time, and that you can't pour from an empty cup, can you? So it's about them having some therapy time as well, and some time for everybody to kind of be together, and that kind of cathartic approach to know that you're not alone. I know that's, you know, what Pam's just referenced on, and that it's really important to have that space for people to just be supported and be together and know that they're not alone. I think especially within the last 18 months, people have been so isolated off that they've felt that they haven't had anybody around to kind of understand where they're coming from. So actually being able to be in a room with other people again and have that contact has meant the world to people. And, you know, it's been really successful. 2 weeks ago we had 7 families in our wellbeing suite for the session, and it was just perfect. They haven't been out since, you know, other than to kind of do work and essentials, they haven't been out and with other people in that situation for 18 months. So it's been invaluable to us. So we've been really grateful. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That's really good to hear. I think the isolation theme is something that's come through a lot of our work anyway, but to understand the impact, particularly on carers, you can see that it's been a really, really hard time. So I'm just really glad that we've got all these projects that are able to support people.
Yeah.
Did anyone have a question for Ness? So I think hopefully we'll have a bit of time anyway, just to have a bit of a more informal chat with everybody if anyone wants to speak at the end.
My signal keeps flashing up as unstable, so if I disappear, I keep moving around different rooms. I will try.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I don't know if Linda's here from the Forest of Dean Mental Health Carers group. There is one iPad that doesn't have a name to it, so I'm just checking, but I don't think she's here at the moment. So if I could ask Brenda, would you be happy to speak about your work?
Okay. I was going to ask the same question, Sarah. I wanted to know if Linda was here because we're both facilitators for Mental Health Carer Support Group. And I noticed on the agenda she was going to speak before me, and I thought, oh, we're going to say more or less the same thing. So I'd like to say hello, everyone, and introduce myself, Brenda. I'm a facilitator for the Cheltenham Mental Health Carer Support Group, as well as being a carer for my daughter. And like the Forest of Dean Support Group, we are a self-funded peer group of mental health carers who aim to support each other through monthly meetings and informal get-togethers. We share our experiences of caring for the seriously mentally ill so that no carer member need feel alone, and as such we are a vital part of the local community. We emphasise with others in similar situations this sharing of kindness, sympathy, understanding and advice makes us as carers feel less isolated. There's that word again, isolation. We share with each other the everyday struggles of caring for a range of long-term mental health illnesses, anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, personality disorder, self-harm, and also physical disability. Our monthly meetings usually comprise of invited speakers from local mental health services and relevant organisations, as well as discussion and question time. Also included are social outings and events in winter and summer months. Meetings always include time to socialise and share experiences. This is very important. We can voice our concerns to our speakers and always ask for more support for mental health carers, in particular, the need for emotional support. We have been meeting virtually on Zoom since lockdown last year, and meetings have been hosted by the Gloucestershire Carers Hub, and they provide valuable support to the group. We were hoping to be able to meet at our new venue in Cheltenham after the 19th of July, but this seems less likely now that COVID infection figures are rising. So we have been fortunate in finding some temporary accommodation in the centre of Cheltenham and are planning our first normal meeting in August. The group was originally set up by two support workers funded by Carers Gloucestershire. Two support workers as carers from both Cheltenham and Tewkesbury were included. These support workers found the venues, organised speakers, organised social events such as Christmas lunch, and made the tea, which is very important. And they also provided one-to-one support, visiting carers in their homes and giving emotional support, which was invaluable to carers. And I myself was helped a great deal by that support. So when the funding for these support workers was no longer available back in 2015, we were advised that if we wanted the group to continue, we would have to run it ourselves. So some of the members volunteered, and I found myself acting as the facilitator for the group, together with a treasurer and very important a tea lady. And with the help of some fundraising, we managed to continue. And when the money ran out, we made our own donations at our meetings and also ran a raffle each month. just raising some petty cash, not much more, which enabled us to treat ourselves to have Christmas parties and cream teas in the summer in the venue where we were meeting. So as mental health carers, we face many issues, trauma, isolation, and detrimental effects on our own physical and mental health. So whilst peer support is important to us, sustaining us in recent years, mental health carers need regular, ongoing emotional support provided by the same professional to ensure continuity, a person with expertise in mental health, someone who will listen to us and support us so we can have improved outcomes. Well, we've always been supported by Suicide Crisis with attendance at some of our meetings and encouraged to seek funding for a support worker to provide that emotional support, which is so desperately needed by our mental health carers. And earlier this year, we made a successful grant application to the Carers Gloucestershire Legacy Fund, which will provide the funding for a part-time support worker for 3 years, subject, of course, to the satisfactory progress and end-of-year reports that are required. So where we are at the moment, it's been quite a long journey. We had to advertise the vacancy and have just completed interviews this week. So I'm feeling quite elated that that's taken place. And we have some very good applications. And we're now preparing for selected candidates to meet with the group members at our next meeting in August, which will, I hope, fingers crossed, be face-to-face, in person, which is so very important when so that, you know, choosing a support worker. And we therefore of a satisfactory outcome and hope to have our support worker in post by September. So we're making progress, Sarah. It's been a long journey and hard work, but that has helped me get through lockdown, quite honestly, as it served as a distraction from all the worries of the pandemic. I persevered with encouragement and support from the Carers Hub and Suicide Crisis, and in turn would encourage other support groups like ours to apply for a grant to provide the support they need. It's well worth all the effort, knowing the benefit a support worker will provide for the carers of our group. And I'd also like to thank the Carers Gloucestershire Legacy Fund for making this possible.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. That's great. And I'm just so pleased that you're at that point now where you're recruiting your support workers. I know what a long journey it's been for you, but yeah, it's brilliant to have seen from the start of those early conversations that we had, I think, in one of these Let's Talk sessions, to see it work through to you, to getting to the point where you found
it certainly did.
Like.
We're
so
very grateful for the help that you gave us as well.
Really.
We need, you know, we just to keep going, need a lot of support and encouragement to keep going.
Mm-hmm. We're happy to do that. So that, yeah, for anybody else that wants to apply, then please don't hesitate to ring. If you're nervous or worried or think it might be too difficult, please just give me a call and we'll see what help we can provide.
I think it can be quite daunting at first. You look at the application form and you think, oh gosh, that's an awful lot of information that's required. But you just treat a section at a time and take the time over it, you get there in the end.
Oh, thank you, Brenda. Linda, are you here? You are, yeah. Oh, let me.
Is she here?
Just before, I think Alan's got his hand up, Sarah.
Oh, sorry, yeah,
Unmute.
Can
you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I'd just like to say that I represent the Cirencester, how can I describe it? The Cirencester Carers Support Group covering mental health. And I have to thank Brenda for giving us a steer as to how to apply to the Gloucestershire Carers Legacy Fund. She's been very helpful, particularly of late. And Tony, who's also online here, he has been putting together our application, and we're working on it because we know that it has to be in by August, mid-August or so.
Mm-hmm.
So without Brenda's help, I don't know where we'd be, or the Carers Hub through Steve Moore, they've been encouraging us. But when we first saw the application some year ago or so, it was quite daunting, and poor Tony there, he's been trying to complete this documentation, but initially we sort of put it to one side because we'd already put in an application to Cotswold District Council, and it was a similar sort of format, and because we hadn't got a constitution, we hadn't got this and we hadn't got that, we fell between the slats. So this is a great opportunity for us in the Cirencester area to actually put in an application and try and emulate what Brenda's done and what I think Linda's done initially. And we will be putting something in shortly, an application. But it's a great thanks to Brenda that we're doing this and the Carers Hub.
Thank you, Alan. That's very kind.
I'm Tony. If I could butt in briefly, I just wanted to say that it's been very useful because the history of our support group very much follows that of Forest of Dean and of Cheltenham. I mean, we were founded about the same time, and we had the same issues with loss of direct support from Carers Gloucestershire. Ours, we were left our devices ourselves back in September 2014. So we've been looking after ourselves for a considerable period of time. But of course, we're all carers. Some of us don't really have a lot of spare time, so it's been very difficult to keep these meetings interesting and going. So it's always been a struggle, but as I said, it's been very helpful with the completion of the form that we're sharing very much the same experiences as other mental health support groups in Gloucestershire.
Oh, brilliant! Oh, it's good to hear that you're going to submit an application.
There's one other thing I was going to say, which rather stands out amongst the group we've got here, is that we're probably one of the few care support groups where the majority of carers are in fact male, and it's been quite unusual, so as far as we can see. But it just goes to show that caring is very much something that everybody has to do for whatever their position is. So we sort of will appreciate it once we've completed our form, if we're successful in getting it with the additional support we think we need to help us generate more interest in our meetings and keep going.
Excellent. I think following on from that then, whilst we're still thinking about carers and mental health carers group, we'll ask Linda to speak about their experience, as Linda's group were the first successful ones.
Oh, Linda is there. His iPad.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. Okay. This is all new to me. So I've got my head around it at last. Well, thank you to Brenda, because she outlined really the history of our group. We're a group of 15 mental health carers in the Forest of Dean, from all over the Forest of Dean. And prior to lockdowns, we, for 13 years, have been meeting monthly in Colford. Originally, that was all organised by Carers Gloucestershire, but like the other groups, we had to take over the running of the group ourselves. And what we found over those years was that a lot of the support we received from Carers Gloucestershire was very generic support. It wasn't really specific mental health support for us as carers. And so we found, particularly over the 4 years or so when we didn't have any support whatsoever, we really struggled to find the right people to come and help us. We self-funded our group, and we were really lucky to be given a small grant by the Forest of Dean District Council, which enabled us to put forward that small amount of funding towards our application. Without that little funding from them, we wouldn't have been able to apply. We care for people with serious mental illnesses. We're aged 27 to 87, and we care for people with schizophrenia, personality disorder, clinical depression, self-harming people, combined with learning disability and substance abuse. And what we really hoped to find through this grant was very specific support. And we've been able to do that because we had some support from the Hub, who provided us with a workshop leader for one session, who came and talked to us about self-compassion and looking after ourselves. And it was very focused on mental health issues, because the deliverer of this workshop, she is, let me find my little note, she is a highly qualified counsellor. She has been a mental health nurse. She's a psychotherapist. She's been a life coach, and she's worked with substance abuse. So she is the perfect person, because whatever our problems are, she has experience of all of those issues. We planned to start our project in April this year, but because of the lockdowns, we found that we were really, really struggling because of reduced access to mental health services for the people we care for, most of whom were now getting telephone support, some of whom were no longer engaging with services, some of whom were turning to drink and drugs during the lockdown. So our problems just exploded in lockdown, the first lockdown. And so we brought the project forward to October 2020. And all of our funding funds Zoom or telephone support from our mentor. And she provides either weekly, fortnightly or monthly mentoring support, depending on need of our members, over the telephone or Zoom. We're sort of split, half and half of us Zoom, half telephone support. But what she provides is just what we need: a listening, non-judgmental ear and space to talk. And the skills and strategies she is able to give us include practical relaxation activities, psychoeducation to help us understand our responses in difficult situations, information and extended reading, encouragement to have self-expression, and relationship counselling, and much, much more. So our learning from this project is that this works. A lot of us would not have survived caring for the people we care for. Those people would be in hospital by now because we just could not manage. So thank goodness for the grant. Thank you, because at last we have the support that we've so needed to develop our confidence and our own mental health and well-being. Our voice has been heard at last. And it's not been for want of trying, because when that funding was originally removed from our groups, members of our groups got on every consultation panel in Gloucestershire we could find. We joined the Mental Health and Wellbeing Partnership. We did lots of presentations, and all we ever got was, we hear you, we sympathise with you, but there's no money. So it's been wonderful. The mentoring support has held us together as a group, and I think we might have folded without this mentoring. And it's held us together because we know that when the times are tough, we've got someone we can get in touch with. So we know every Thursday our mentor is available to us. Plus, she will respond if you have a crisis out of her working hours, as it were. Our key learning points are, well, I will just quote from 2 of our surveys, because we did a survey in January of our members, and we've just done one now. And 2 quotes. I have been a carer since the early 1990s and have never had support like this before. So this is something really new for mental health carers. And from another member, Carey has been a lifesaver. So it does work, and we just fingers crossed that we can keep on accessing funding to keep this going. So thank you to the grant people.
Oh, thank you so much, Linda. That's so brilliant to hear quite what a difference you made. It's evident from your application at the start, but it seems to have made a really huge difference, and I'm delighted to hear it. I think everyone else will be that was involved in that. I'm definitely going to share this video so that all our panel can hear. We're running a little bit short on time, so rather than having questions now, I'm just going to ask Helen to speak now about her projects that we can try and keep to time, if that's okay.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Helen Atkinson from Age UK Gloucestershire. It's lovely to hear what everybody's doing. It's fantastic. I'll keep it really brief. I'm sure everybody has heard of Age UK Gloucestershire. We've got loads of experience of supporting older people, and we know we support carers, but we've never had an opportunity to really understand what it's like being an older carer. And this is what we're doing with the funding that we've received at the moment. We're at the research stage of our project, talking to those people who've identified already as an older carer, and having a conversation with them to really understand what it's like. What are the specific issues associated with being an older person yourself and being a carer? Because we know that there's loads of opportunities, but there's equally challenges. And what we've already discovered is it's that codependency. We've spoken to a lot of people who perhaps an older person may be caring for somebody with dementia, but the person who is doing the caring has also got arthritis themselves. They're neglecting themselves, they're managing, they're all telling us they're coping. It's a generational thing we're hearing, that we just get on with it. We don't identify as being a carer as such. So we're doing sort of a triage at first, really trying to help people understand what is out there for them. So it's great to hear about all these other things that I'm learning about, because we're talking about older carers, caring for people with a range of issues. And what we hope to produce in the first stage of our funding is some information for older carers, driven by other older carers. What I wish I had known. What top tips would you give to somebody else in your situation? And people have come up so far with such amazingly simple, real practical tasks and issues, which, we perhaps ask for help sooner. We need a glossary of terms. What does respite mean? People don't know. If they've never been a carer until their later life, there's lots of things that we can put together, and that's what we're going to do with the first part of our funding, as well as hopefully identify what will help other older carers in a different sense going forward. So we're at that early stage, talking to people, really understanding the needs and having some great conversations and connecting people into the support, because people will come to Age UK, they've heard the name, they've heard of Age UK Gloucestershire, they perhaps don't know quite what we do, but we are in a great position to connect people with other organisations. There's going to be a feature about this project in our next Grapevine magazine, which was been supported by yourselves. So we're really pleased to be able to support carers in this way, which we haven't been able to before. So I'll keep it short, I'll leave it at that and let somebody else talk.
Thank you so much, Helen. That's really good to hear, and it's really interesting to hear about those top tips as well, and the things that are coming out of that hopefully will be useful for everybody really in terms of caring, and certainly useful for us to learn about as we progress with our panels as well.
Sorry, Sarah, I mean, I'd like to dive in again here. I must thank Helen for that. Maybe she can come along and speak to our group at some point, because the majority of the carers in our group are, let's say, getting on a bit. We're looking after our family members or partners, and it is sometimes a bit of a struggle. It's also sometimes a bit of a struggle to understand how things are going to go in the future, since, you know, sort of we're all in the group, most of us in the group are knocking on a bit.
Yeah, that's, you know, it's really good for us to hear about other groups that are out there, but we obviously want to talk to more older carers. So yes, happy to talk to you further after this meeting. It's really good to just meet more people.
I think finally, if I could ask Karen to speak about your project, it'd be great to hear from you.
Hello, I'm Karen. I'm the Chief Exec of Mindsong. I too will keep it as brief as possible. We run a range of services all across Gloucestershire for anyone who hasn't heard of us, but our main remit is later stage dementia, and really the more complex side. For this project, the grant was to expand our service for carers for people with complex dementia at home. This is part of our music therapy at home service, particularly supporting the challenges of COVID-19, use of new technology, lack of respite, and on top of that, safeguarding. The service we offer is important because it's consistent. So when you've got someone lovely turning up for at least an hour per week for a minimum of 12 weeks, who is highly skilled and knowledgeable, and everything they do is based on empathy, that is one of the few things carers have access to, particularly when they're caring with someone with advanced dementia at home. We see the benefits of time spent talking to a skilled listener, and the benefits of building a trusted relationship in a very challenging environment with someone who can become an advocate with other agencies if you need them to. So this grant was enabling us to build a stronger safety net for carers, adding extra support where it was needed, not only during the pandemic, which continues, as we all know, to be very difficult for people with dementia at home and their carers. But beyond that, we've had a huge increase in referrals to our service since the pandemic began. We work with couples mostly, sometimes people who are living alone with dementia. And we normally have, 20 to 30 referrals a year. Well, last year we had 78. We used to get about 7 referrals a month. This month we've had 13 already, and the month isn't over yet. It's a huge increase, and we expect it to carry on now. We offer the service on Zoom and WhatsApp and Skype, whatever anybody had, we help them to use it. We went all through the pandemic. We didn't stop. We were using music therapy in somebody's garden and their driveway, in their garage, anywhere we could be without going into the home. And then quite quickly, we became key workers and were allowed to go back into people's homes again. The challenges we were seeing was that there was absolutely no respite at all. All the clubs had closed down. The person with dementia wasn't understanding the reasons for the lockdown or COVID rules, social distancing, masks, none of that. So they were less likely to go out. Care packages stopped. Levels of frustration and tension rose, and opportunities for stimulation were hugely reduced. So we continued. We added in our carer support team. They used to be our assessors. They would go in when we got a referral and they would do a pre and post assessment. That was no longer needed, so we called them the carer support team, recruited an awful lot more via this grant, and they were at times doing weekly support calls with carers, really keeping an eye. And as Helen says, oh, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Well, we were there on a regular basis, knowing when people weren't, and were able to signpost on. We dealt with a lot of safeguarding issues, including a kidnapping, which was interesting. So to keep this short, I will just read you a few of the responses from carers to what we were able to do during the pandemic and what we've continued to do. The service is excellent. It was the first thing that was positive and organised during the pandemic. No one else would come in, including the GP and district nurses. And it was brilliant because when this person's mother went into a care home, our therapist, instead of asking her to organise it, organised the transition herself and carried on the music therapy in the care home. And that was really beneficial. Someone else said they were overwhelmed when we came, and it was important that we obviously cared about her as well as the person with dementia. The kindness and love I was shown was incredible. And it was important. We showed that she was as important as her husband. It was very hard to think of anything better. I felt embraced and understood, and I felt so lucky to be offered this. I didn't have to explain about what my husband was going through. Her husband has dementia, but he was a group of people who just understood. I didn't have to make apologies for the way my husband is. And the therapist was so flexible and we worked so closely together, even when this particular family with our support swapped everything round and their nighttime became their daytime. So our therapist was working in the evening because that was their morning, because the person with dementia wanted to go out and didn't understand why he couldn't. So it was the only thing, and it was wonderful, and it was though you were holding us. So thanks to this grant, we have been able to increase our support with carers. We started a carers forum to actually look at what carers need, even down to, do you want to be called carers? Somebody said, I didn't think of myself as a carer, I was a wife. It's simple things like that. Looking at language, I can see Helen nodding. Yes, I think we're going to have to be sharing some of what we're learning, Helen. That's really all I want to say. We started befriending pods, which is, we have 400 volunteers across the county, and a lot of them are ex-councillors or NHS personnel. So we've taken specific ones and they're forming befriending pods to carry on the work when music therapy stops. We have Sing to Remember, which we haven't done with this grant, but through the other things that this grant is supporting, we can refer back into a community choir for people living in the community with people with dementia. So lots and lots of good things. And over the next 2 years of our grant, we're going to be looking at young onset dementia and what more we can do there. That's fairly new for us. Done.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's just brilliant to hear all the things that are happening with everybody's organisations. I don't know about anyone else, but it makes me feel quite emotional when I hear all these stories of how people are struggling, but also the really positive steps that everybody's taking to support carers, and the difference it's making is, it's fantastic to hear. Has anybody got anything else they would like to talk about whilst we're here? I'm really aware that we've gone past 3 o'clock, but I'm available to carry on this call for anyone that does want to stay on to have a bit more of a chat together, or I'm just wondering about the best way of, I think there's probably people that would like to be put in touch and things, so it would be really useful if you could let me know if you'd be happy for your email addresses to be shared so that people can get in touch with each other in the future.
Sarah, I would like to be put in touch with Blanche and Helen, please. If we're not already, I think we might already be. But yes, you can share mine.
I've put my email in the chat if anybody wants to email me or about anything Age UK Gloucestershire related. I'll make sure it gets passed to the right person if it's not me. But for this specific piece of work, I'm happy to be contacted.
Thank you.
Yeah, whatever happens, Helen, I would like to make contact with you, and I'm sure Tony would as well, given that we're both aging and we're caring for someone, and we do worry year upon year what will happen when we're not about.
Yeah.
I'd also like to mention at the same time, Linda's looking rather hot there. We, like yourselves in Cirencester and you in the Forest of Dean, were approaching all sorts of, we were inputting when we were told that the contract was due for renewal. And we were saying we wanted the reinstatement of the support worker. And every opportunity we got, just like you, Linda, we said that, and yet it didn't come back. And we weren't given any reasons, not even costing reasons. We were told that the clinical commissioning group and Gloucestershire County Council haven't included this in the specification. Did you get any feedback on why that was?
Oh, sorry, Brenda, I think you're on mute.
Hello?
That's it, yeah, that's better.
I had a feeling that the ethos at Carers Gloucestershire was that by setting up peer groups, right, we're doing a tick list. We've got 160 peer groups. We've set up these groups. We've shown them how to organise themselves. We want to give people the freedom to do their own thing. Bye. That was my feeling. I never thought we would ever get the groups back.
So one of the concerns I have is going forward, you've been successful, Brenda's been successful with the fund, the legacy fund. Obviously that isn't going to last forever, and once we get a few years hence, where do we go from there?
But we then have different groups that have demonstrated that this funding makes a difference. Mm-hmm. So then for me, we start campaigning.
Right.
I mean, how can they say it doesn't work when it does? How can they tell us all to get lost? Look at the number of people we're caring for that they would have to provide accommodation and support for, and how much would that cost them? However, we did use that argument before and it didn't seem to.
Faces might change.
I think I would just think anybody that's funded, just got a bit of an echo, just to say record all the things that you're finding from your funding and the positive changes it's making, and hopefully that will help you to evidence then, as Linda says, in the future, how vital really the funding has been to you and the change it's made. If not with statutory funding, perhaps with other funders then, that we're, as Gloucestershire Community Foundation, we're linked in with various other funders around Gloucestershire that we can also help to signpost when you come to looking for other funding. We ourselves have other funding programmes as well that some of your work might be applicable to in the future. So I think it is about evidence gathering as much as possible to record where you can those changes that funding's made, so that we can between us demonstrate a real impact of what's been happening from this grants programme and where there's a need to be able to expand on that work.
Can I just say, I think the advantage of this sort of group is about that sort of collaborative working. We're all working together in a way, and if we want at Age UK Gloucestershire to raise the voice of older people, so we can, you know, speak up as well. You know, that older people really do need that extra support, whether it be through a mental health support group, if you're an older person supporting somebody with mental health issues of whatever. We need, you know, to be working together. So I think it's really great that you've brought everybody together so we can all be shouting at the same time, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think also that's something that we'll continue to do, although we're coming to our last round of funding, probably, depending on the grants that are awarded in that last round. But we'll still continue with this being a multi-year grant. It will still be really great to bring more people together. And I think there are more organisations that have been supported who would also like to speak about their work. So I think we're planning on continuing with these Let's Talks every so often, so that we can bring everybody together. Particularly with this group, we've got lots of planes at the moment that keep flying over our house. It's a little bit noisy, but yeah, with the group with the carers, because it's quite a specific funding programme, that there's this really common thread, and I think it's just really important. And we've seen today how beneficial it is really to be able to talk about your projects and share ideas and share findings. So it's definitely something we'll plan to carry on with.
Sorry if I can mute myself. We're looking at putting an application soon. I'm from Charco Therapy Centre, which has just changed from the Gloucester MS Therapy Centre and O2 Centre. So Helen and I will say, hopefully we'd like to be in contact with you going forward to work on our projects, and we're looking at doing similar things. So it's been really good to hear about your projects and how they've been moving forward, and that what we're thinking of the path that we're going down, because we do lots of different conditions, from neurological disorders and arthritis and cancer, and touch on sort of everyone and of every age as well. So it would be quite good to maybe in the future collaborate as well, going forward, to help each other out in different areas once we've got our heads around this a little bit more as well. But yeah, it's been really positive to hear how everybody's been touched and moved forward by it.
Brilliant. Oh, we'll look forward to hearing from you, Vicky, as well. Did anybody else want to say anything? Or Talitha, did you want to say anything?
No, it's just been absolutely brilliant listening to everybody. Absolutely fantastic. Like Sarah says, you know, it is quite emotional because you're listening to people's lives, about people's lives and the challenges, and just hearing that you've been able to do the things that you actually want to do. And I think sometimes funding doesn't always support the direct needs, and I think what I'm hearing is having this funding is being able to allow you to do what you want to do, or what your beneficiaries or the people you're working with, what are their needs, what do they need, and you've been able to deliver on that. And I think that's really exciting, and how flexible funding and supportive funding should work. And I think, Linda, from, you know, I love the fact that you've got that drive to say, look, we've proven the model and now we can show exactly what we're doing. And that is all it's about. You know, funders will always support you having proved the model, but to get someone to back you to prove the model is always the most hardest part, which is what we like to hope we can do. We often take risks, we often support where others may not support because it looks risky, and so for us grassroots, there's always going to be the element of proving the model. So I think once you've got funding, and interestingly talking to other funders and it says GCF have funded you, they know the high due diligence that we do, and essentially once you've got GCF having funded you, other funders will go, oh well, if they've funded them then it's obviously a good project. So you're already on the ladder to that funding ladder of getting further support. So like you say, once maybe our support runs out, you just need to keep those applications going, and once you've had that support from us, you will find it a lot easier, I promise you. Once you've proved the model, you've had funding, you should find it a lot easier. So thank you, brilliant to hear from you all. And anybody else, anything else for anyone else? We did have Tracy, so sad we missed Tracy because we couldn't see her face, but Tracy's the chair of our panel, also a trustee of GCF. And it's been brilliant having her chair the panel, and we've got a brilliant panel of people, including a young person who cared for their mother. So it's been a really interesting representation for the carers panel, people with really good experience working at the CCG to actually 3 members with lived experience. So it's been a brilliant piece of work for us to be involved in, and it's also helped shape some of the ways we've worked. So I've had to encourage my board to be a bit ambitious and to be a bit more modern in the way we think, and actually this has been an absolutely brilliant piece of work to help us develop as an organisation. So thank you all because you've helped us too. So interesting to see how we get on over the next couple of years with this legacy. Thank you everybody. I'll pass you back to Sarah.
I think I just want to say thank you to everybody again. Following on from this, we'll be sending around a survey monkey to everybody that's attended, just to ask for your feedback on how you thought the event went and what you've learned and things like that. So it would be really grateful if you could just take a couple of minutes just to answer those questions, because it helps us really to evidence what we're doing and which bits are working and which bits could be improved upon and things like that for future get-togethers, and perhaps give us an idea about how regularly and things like that you might like to get together with other people that are working on similar projects like this. So that would be really helpful if you don't mind responding to that. And then I think there's a couple of people that have asked to be put in touch, so I'll do that after the meeting as well. And we'll also share around the video. It's going to go up on our YouTube channel for people that weren't able to come along today, so that they can see what everybody's been doing. So I think that's everything now, and yeah, just another big thank you to everybody for coming.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.